So big was this news back in the day, and I don't remember seeing a copy of this. I didn't go looking for it, but had this on Time Magazine back in 1990 about the red heifer.
Hmm.
So Israel's been chasing this down for a while. But what did you find out here recently, Terry, about the red heifer?
The sacrifice is going to take place on the Mount of Olives, and has to overlook. It's going to look down where the Temple Mount is, where the dome is. So they're
Mm-hmm.
going to build. There's already a land. A rabbi already purchased the part of the Mount of Olives where they're going to start building the sacrifice. The structure for the sacrifice, and the priests. They already have the priests in place. They have the garments. They've been training the priests, over the years. They're ready to go. And
And it's
now,
going back like 25, 30 years. They've had all that stuff ready to go.
yeah, but now the red heifer, we have 4 red heifers, unblemished. They're about like 2 years old now, going to be 3 years old. So that, the article, what I read said they need to do the sacrifice, right now, because after 3, that's when the blemishes and all that will probably begin to
Start coming
appear.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but right now they're pure. So they wanted, guess, I read this in October 7th, last year, Israel was invaded, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they were gonna do the sacrifice in October of last year.
Interesting.
Isn't it funny? Yeah, there's articles out there.
God delayed it with
There's-
this attack.
exactly, and there's
Wow.
one of the leaders of Hamas. He's they gave him the camera and they just do their chants and their talk, their threats. He even brought up the red cows. So they didn't want. They're trying to postpone this. Isn't that crazy?
It's because
Even
they deep down inside they know. They
yeah.
know what is true.
Yeah,
Wow.
so the rabbi bought this plot of land on Mount of Olives overlooking the Temple Mount area, the temple site, and they have to do the sacrifice overlooking it. They're going to start building the structure this year on that land, and we're so
That must
close.
have cost a pretty penny because I've heard that people who want to be Jews, observant Jews, want to be buried there today. And we showed the pictures of all
Wow.
those tombs there in the Kidron Valley. To get buried there is millions of dollars.
Wow.
So now to buy, and having driven up there and walked up there, in my mind, and if you're interested, you guys at home joining us here, you can pull up on Google Maps or Google Earth, depending on what
Mm.
thing that you have on your search engines.
Yeah.
You can look at the Temple Mount area and go across over to the other side on the Mount of Olives, and they'll have little words that you can then scope in on and see.
Mm.
And there's a small parking lot up there. There's the wall that they've got enough room for the big tour buses to drive in. And the first time I went was on one of those big tour buses. Second time we had a little van,
Mm.
and I found this guy just be, hey, park right here. So we were able to park, walk over there, take pictures, looking back at the Temple Mount. Just on the other side of the hill, there's like homes and apartments and stuff. So you know what? I could see the guy buying some land and raising the rundown homes that were over there, and then building this thing because you're looking down at the Temple Mount.
Mm.
I got to do some more homework on that. That's cool.
Yeah.
So back to the red heifer, Terry.
So
Where did the red heifers that they have in Israel come from?
what happened?
Where did the red heifers that they have in Israel right now come from?
Interesting. It came from a Christian. The rabbis went to this Christian man. Hey, can you find us some 5 red heifers? Because we want to get this thing going. And so he found the 5 red heifers in Texas.
Yeah.
He called the rabbis and say, "I found them." Each red heifer was about $100,000, guys. You believe that? Hundreds, 5 of them.
That include the shipping costs?
I don't know about that.
They had to put them on a plane and take them from Texas to
Yeah.
Israel.
It's funny how it was a Christian guy who led them to these 5 heifers. Now they've been in Israel. Now they're located in a disclosed, because of Hamas and all that stuff going on over there. They're hiding them because they don't want anybody to kill them. Try to prevent this sacrifice. And right now they're getting ready, guys. They're getting ready for the red heifer sacrifice. Going to take place Passover, either 2024 or sometime this summer. I don't think they're going to announce it because of the fear of people, of terrorists. trying to maybe kill off the red heifer so the sacrifice doesn't take place. But this is the last puzzle, they said. This is the last puzzle going into place before the reconstruction of the temple. When this happens, it could be any time now that they're going to start just, erecting the temple. They even said they have the stones cut. They cut it with diamond. All the stones are perfectly cut now. Everything's in place. It's just, we're waiting. It's just the timing, God's timing, right?
If you remember, one of the things a lot of people don't study history because they don't care, and sometimes you're not missing anything, but you miss out because if you don't read and study history, you've heard that famous statement that those who don't study history are doomed to repeat it.
Yeah.
But back in 1990, there was a group, and it's still around. It's called the Temple Mount Faithful. And they tried to bring up a cornerstone to put on the Temple Mount. And these are faithful Jews.
Yeah.
And here's the guy's name. I remember. The movement was founded by a former IDF, it's the Israeli Defense Forces, and an officer and a Middle Eastern Studies lecturer. His name was Gershon Solomon. And I think he has since passed away. But in October 8th, wow, interesting date, October 8th of 1990, 17 Palestinians were killed, over 100 others injured by the Israeli border police. And Temple Mount riots were triggered because this Temple Mount Faithful group were going to go up on the Temple Mount and try to lay a cornerstone for the third temple. And Temple Mount police then, because when I was up there in 1989, you had the Israeli police down underneath, and the Muslims had their own police force up on top. And so while we were standing over by the Dome of the Tablets, the police station for those guys at the time was over there in that corner on the north side of that 35 acres of the Temple Mount. And the police came out and they did a little like impromptu inspection and marching in place and making some noise.
Yeah.
But that group prohibited Solomon from entering the temple, as in Gershon Solomon in 1990, from going up there. And then he appealed to the Israeli Supreme Court, and they, said, no, you're going to cause trouble. You can't do that. Hoping, so as Terry said, really this red heifer is the last piece of the puzzle. These other guys want to go up and put this cornerstone for the temple, but more than likely, because of all the wars and destruction that has occurred in the Temple Mount, these guys want to cleanse the Temple Mount. So they need the red heifer, and they want to do it Levitically correctly.
Yeah.
So one of the other things that people talk about, and Grant Jeffrey mentioned, and the Mishnah has, is that they found some of the stuff back in 1947 in the Qumran caves on the way down to the Red Sea. They found the jars. A young Bedouin shepherd was chasing his sheep down, and one disappeared, and he found some caves. He's looking inside like, that's deep. So he takes the rock. You've seen this in movies. You throw the rock down there, shatter. Wow, what's that? So he went and got some friends. He crawled down. They found all these vases and other ceramic jars. And one of the jars had the whole scroll of the book of Isaiah.
Wow.
Across the street there in downtown Jerusalem from the Knesset, their government building, is a thing called the Shrine of the Book. And the roof of the place is like rounded with a handle like the Torah scrolls where they unroll the Torah. And you can go inside, and they have in bulletproof and hermetically sealed glass that book of Isaiah scrolled out, and you can walk through from chapter 1 to chapter 67, 8, whatever chapters in Isaiah. And they've studied the book, and the Bible we have today, no changes from that book of Isaiah they found in that scroll in that cave back in 1947.
What's interesting now in Israel, I guess this will be the first time, and it might be an uproar. They're actually I'm reading this right, it was February 20th, this article. Israel ponders restricting access to one of Islam's holiest sites for Ramadan.
And what site is that?
The mosque, what's it called? The mosque says, the Muslim holy month of Ramadan is always a period of heightened tensions around Jerusalem's Al-Aqsa Mosque. Is that how you say it?
Al-Aqsa Mosque. So if you look at the dome up on the Temple Mount, for those of you who've seen the pictures of it in your mind, that's the golden dome on the Temple Mount. Just south of that, on that area, is a dark gray dome, and that's the Al-Aqsa Mosque. And then what the Muslims did about 10 years ago, underneath that area is what they called Solomon's Stables. And they wanted to make that mosque bigger. So they went underground, and started digging out acres of dirt, enhance the size of this underground auditorium for their mosque. And they took it to the dump. And so the Israeli archaeologists, because the people who administered the Temple Mount area up on top, would not let independent archaeologists, Jewish or otherwise, go up there. So the Jews ended up going to the dump where the Muslims were taking the dirt. And they've been finding all sorts of stuff that prove David, Solomon, the Maccabean period. They're finding coins and weapons and pottery and stuff like that, and signet rings. They found one of those signet rings that, like the Romans had used to seal the exciting times. And like we've said, I've read that the Saudis are going to make an announcement that they realize Muhammad never went to Jerusalem.
Really?
And and they didn't really have any history of that. It was in their tradition to make Jerusalem special to the Muslims.
Yeah.
And the Saudis, and that again gets that thing we talked about a little bit in a previous show. You can do the homework on the difference between the Sunnis and Shiite Muslims.
Yeah.
And the majority is, I want to say, the Shiites, and the minority is the Sunnis, but I got a 50% chance there of who's who. And allegedly the Saudis are getting ready to kick up and say, hey, you know what, Israel, you can have the Temple Mount. That's not important to us anymore.